This CKNW podcast for AIM Medical Imaging, home of AIM Medical Imaging full body MRI scanning. A family history of medical issues is nothing to ignore. Book a preventative screening at aimmedicalimaging.com.
This is Province columnist Mike Smyth. It's my pleasure to fill in for Simi Sara today. I want to welcome all the listeners now along the Chorus Radio Network, wherever you are in beautiful British Columbia today. We'll talk about speed limits in this province now, and anyone who drives in British Columbia probably has an opinion on this one. Are the speed limits too low? Maybe you think they're too high. Well, the BC government wants to hear from you with its speed review. It was in Vancouver today. Let's check in now with Ian Tootill, co-founder of Sense BC. Hey, Ian.
Hi, Mike. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for coming on. So
Thank you.
You've been pushing this thing for so long.
I know.
Man, I mean, when did we start talking about this? Like 15 years ago?
Yeah, it's actually going on around 18 now, Mike, because photo radar was the issue initially, and that was brought out in about 1995.
Okay, you've been beating this drum for a long time that you think that the speed limits in this province are out of whack. Where are we at with this review right now, and where do you hope it goes?
Well, the review is a roadshow that's going throughout BC that's being put on by the ministry, and it's combined with an online survey that's accessible on the Ministry of Transportation website and the sensebc.org website as well. So they're going from city to city to solicit public input on the idea of revising speed limits and some other topics as well, like slow drivers, for instance. That's another topic that they're talking about.
Okay, make your pitch here now for what you think is wrong with the speed limit system we have now and how it should be changed.
Well, in a nutshell, the speed limits in British Columbia do not represent the safe upper end of travel speed, and they make lawbreakers out of the majority of motorists.
In other words, the speed limits are too low.
In many cases on rural highways, they're too low. I just completed a 7,000-kilometer trip in the States over the Christmas holidays, and I paid close attention to what they're doing in other states right now, and it's very, very noticeable when you come back to BC.
Okay. You've heard the saying, speed kills, right? I mean, this is why the speed limits are in place that we have.
Yeah. Well, I kind of, and I brought this up with ministry officials before, I kind of view the way that the province goes about its traffic safety as a kind of suck and blow exercise. We build these tremendous highways that are super duper, right up to date, beautiful highways, like the Sea to Sky is a prime example. And we build them for speed, and then we clobber people when they drive them as designed. And that's just not appropriate.
What's the speed limit on the Sea to Sky?
The Sea to Sky before the $1 billion upgrade was 80. And it's been modified substantially, modernized, made faster, and it remains at 80.
What do you think it should be?
Well, I don't want to get into that, Mike, because one of the things that we're encouraging the ministry to do is adopt the methodology to set speed limits, to measure and set them. And the speed limit on that road, I can tell you, is not right, because whenever I travel in a motor vehicle, and not only one that I'm driving, but one that other people are driving, I notice what their speeds are, and they're substantially over the posted limit, and we're not doing anything dangerous.
Right. So I mean, everybody's breaking the law.
Right.
What is wrong with that? I mean, do you see it as what is there any safety concern there? I mean, if people are driving at a safe speed, presumably that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But do you also think it's a cash grab for the cops and the government?
It's a revenue grab. It's not necessarily, I guess, and you could say a cash grab. But what's really wrong with it is that it's misdirected legislation that causes unnecessary hardship on people and really does a disservice to our economy, because really transportation is the lifeblood of any economy. And fast, safe transportation for people, goods, and services is what you really want to run things properly. And I know that in this trip that I just did, I planned my trip out quite well, and I looked at things like how fast I could drive and make it through a certain state and what I would pay for gas and that type of thing. And if we're going to be confiscating vehicles from people, you can lose your car now on the spot for doing 40K over, which is really easy to do. If we're going to be doing that to people, we're going to find that people will just avoid British Columbia altogether. I'd certainly not come to a place like this if I was coming from outside and I knew that I could be driving at a safe speed and lose
Oh,
my car.
no, wait a minute. Hang on a sec. You're saying people are not going to come to BC because the speed limit's like 10K too low?
Mike, I absolutely am saying that. I've heard that argument before from other people in the past, and I kind of thought, I'm not going to use that argument because I was a little skeptical myself at first, but I can tell you that I would be absolutely mortified and ruined if I was caught in the middle of a trip and I lost my car. 18,000 people plus have lost their vehicles since 2010 through this new legislation.
From speeding.
For traveling at excessive speed. And excessive speed is defined as 40K over. Now, I drove back in the Fraser Valley yesterday along from Chilliwack back to Vancouver, and the speed limits alternate between 100 and 80. So 100 kilometers an hour and 80 kilometers an hour. And I tell you, the speed did not deviate all the way back to Vancouver with the majority of traffic from 120.
Okay, so you find that the speed limits as they're posted too are just, inconsistent?
Well, they're inconsistent, but they're not realistic. And, if you've got a speed limit of 80 and everybody's doing 120, it's kind of a waste to be sending police out to enforce that limit if they're doing it safely.
Okay, what about, speed limits on a major highways are one thing. What about speed limits in, say, more urban city driving, urban arterial roads, that kind of thing? Do you think they're out of whack there too?
Right. Well, on our video, Speed Kills Your Pocketbook, which is also available on the website, we focused on one area in Vancouver that's a well-known speed trap, and that's Southeast Marine Drive. It's posted at 50 kilometers an hour, and people quite regularly travel above 80 on that stretch. There are sections of urban arteries that are just not posted right, but this speed limit review that's being done now initially is focused on rural highways. And so, they're not even going to be talking about stretches like that. Even the upper levels highway in North Vancouver could probably use a review, but that's not the focus right now. The focus is on the obvious discrepancies.
Okay, they don't want to monkey around with those lucrative speed traps.
I guess you could put it that way.
Why would they cut off their revenue? Come on.
Yeah, I know.
The government's broke.
But I have to say this. One of the really frustrating things right now is that motivation from, I guess, John Q. Public doesn't seem to be that great, anecdotally, in my view anyway. I'm going to go to the speed review tonight and observe what people say there, but a lot of people have been lulled into complacency because actually the number of speeding tickets that have been given out over the last couple of years have dropped. We're now handing out below 200,000 speeding violations.
Well, I wonder if it's complacency or maybe the problem is not as bad as you think it is. I mean, I know there's a lot of people out there who maybe they've lost loved ones in traffic accidents who might be listening to you, Ian, saying, wait a minute, raise the speed limit? You got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
I mean, things are dangerous enough out there. I mean, if you raise the speed limits, wouldn't that be a message to drivers? Oh, okay, now I can gun it.
Yeah, that's a very logical assumption that we hear a lot from people, and it's not entirely true. It's based on the assumption that people choose their travel speeds based on the sign by the side of the road, and that's not what they do. People choose travel speeds based on a variety of different factors like design of the road, weather conditions, condition of the vehicle, noise in the vehicle, fuel economy, a whole bunch of things. So, raising a posted speed limit to the upper end of safe travel speed by the majority does not necessarily produce a rise in travel speeds. And the most extreme example would be highways in Germany, where on some of the autobahns there are no speed limits and people can travel as fast as they want, but the majority, and some do, but the majority of motorists travel between 130 and 140. And 130, by the way, is roughly, that's a pretty generally accepted speed limit.
Is the autobahn a safe highway?
It is. Their fatalities per kilometers driven are less than what we have here in Canada.
Okay, I'm going to jump in there, Ian. We'll take a break. We'll come back with more with Ian Tootill. Your boy, he's been pushing this issue for a long time. He's got the government's attention now with a speed limit review underway by the province. Let's open the phone lines. Call me up and tell me what you think. Do you agree with Ian Tootill? Do you think the speed limits are too low in this province? What about all those speed traps? If you know any notorious speed traps, call me up and tell me about them. Do your fellow driver a public service. Tell me where these speed traps are. What do you think? Should the speed limits be lowered? Should the speed limits be raised? Call me. Tell me your opinion. 604-280-9228. 9898 is the number to call. Toll free all around BC. It's 1-877-399-9898, star 9898 in your cell. Your call's next. All right, welcome back. Talking about speed limits around BC with Ian Tootill. The province is reviewing this right now. They got public hearings underway. I think what they're going to do is probably raise some speed limits around the province, but I don't think they're going to touch any of those most lucrative speed traps they got there. Just make too much money. 604-280-9898. Let's go to Lori on the open line. Hey, Lori.
Hello.
Hi there.
Yeah, I just want to say that I agree with raising speed limits to a point. I drove a BMW for 5 years. I bought it for the safety features, for the acceleration and braking. And I sold it because of the speed traps and because of the fact that you could drive the car so easily and you could maneuver so easily. It was a no-brainer. You could travel a lot quicker. And I loved it. But I got to tell you, the speed traps around the Okanagan, they're there, and you got to keep your eyes open.
Did you get a lot of tickets?
I got 3 in the first 2 years.
So you got rid of the car?
I did, yeah. One of those things where it's just too easy to drive it faster than a regular car.
What are you driving now?
Now I drive a Subaru Legacy.
And you don't. How come you don't speed in that one? It's just not as well engineered. So.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a comfortable little car. It doesn't allow me to, to exceed the speed limit the way I could in the BMW.
Okay, Lori, thanks for calling in. Well, Ian, I guess what you're talking about, some of these cars are engineered now to go faster, and the highways are made for faster travel too. That's basically what Ian was saying. Let's go to Al on the open line. Hey, Al.
Hi, how are you doing today?
Good.
The speed limits are too low. I mean, in the 50s and the 60s, when the cars were 396s and 427s, we used to do 120 miles an hour all the time. Think nothing of it. It used to take me 2 hours and 45 minutes to go from Winnipeg to Dauphin, and I did that every time. I mean, what was
the speed limit?
Oh, I have no idea. 60 miles an hour then.
And you used to go 120?
I used to, 100, I averaged 100 miles an hour.
Did you ever get caught by the cops?
Oh, a few times.
How much was the fine back then?
I think it was $30 or something.
Oh, that was a bargain. Hey, Al, thanks for calling in. Mike.
Yes, great topic. Ian's brought on a great program. We're still in the dinosaur ages. We need to change the limits, especially in areas from Hope to Prince George in pockets.
Oh, yeah.
Prince Rupert to Prince George in pockets. Prince George to Fort Nelson in pockets, and some of the other corridors on the island.
Are those speed traps there?
And he made a very valid point of coming from Chilliwack to Surrey.
Yeah.
We really need to change the system.
Okay, you think those speed traps in there?
17,000 cars, you said, confiscated? That's just insane.
It's almost 20 now.
Yeah, and I mean, I speed 20% of the time, but I'm extremely cautious. I've had 4 or 5 tickets in the last decade, and I just can't afford these fines. But, sometimes you really got to go 120.
Well, sometimes you just can't help it. I mean, everyone else is going that speed limit, too. I mean, you look down at your dash and you go, oh, my God, I'm going like 20K over here easily, and I'm just crawling. Let's go to Mike on the open line. Hey, Mike. Let's go to Sean instead. Sean?
Hey, how you doing today, guys?
Good.
Hey, right on. Speed limits, love to see them higher, but I think the major question that we really have to look at would have to start with new drivers is the education of the drivers and the driving skills and the essentials around the following distances. And I personally believe the following distance is the biggest factor in how fast we can go on the road. With the new highway, new Portman Highway coming through, things have opened up. You've got 100K zone. Everyone's doing 110, 120. I really like that people have spaced themselves out a bit, but you still see people, they're a car length or 2 behind. You got to be 4 seconds behind, or it's just not going to work. So if people want to, it has to adjust. You see it in the States. See it in other places. They've got speed limits that change throughout the day. You get into a rush hour situation. Well, it's going to be 80. It's going to be 90. It's going to be 70.
Okay, Ian, what do you think about that?
Well, I think that they should. One of the things that we're asking the government to do is adopt a different approach to how they encourage people to drive. And we're encouraging kind of a teamwork approach and calling it driving with purpose. Holland uses something called speed where possible, or faster where possible, slower where necessary. And it's a different approach than kind of this adversarial approach that we've taken for the last 2 decades, and clobbering everybody with speed kills. And people know that it doesn't. It's not speed that kills. It's when you actually come to a dead stop against something. That's what kills people.
Yeah, well, also, he brought up following too closely, which I think is a good point. I mean, I never tailgate. I mean, I think that's something that everyone should be aware of. And also distracted driving, get off your phone.
Well, people have become very insular. There's a lot of technology in cars these days, but there's also the top downs, what they're seeing from people or from governments with speed enforcement and kind of an us versus them mentality. And what people what needs to be drilled into people's consciousness and needs to be made part of our culture is that we're all part of a bigger thing here when we're driving, and for every action there's a reaction, and everything that people does needs to be done with the knowledge that whatever they do is going to cause somebody else something. And you see it. I guess what I could say here is you see it when you're in Europe. If you're driving on the roads in the UK and there's an obstruction on the road up ahead, people will flash you well in advance of that obstruction around a corner so that you're aware of it. Here, people just don't do that because they don't care what goes on outside of their cars.
Okay, 604-280-9898 is the number to call. Toll-free 1-877-399-9898, star 9898 on your cell. Let's go to Steve on the open line. Hey, Steve.
Good afternoon. I agree with your guest, Michael, that on some of our modernized highways that the speed limits should be increased. Conversely, I live in Richmond, and I've had a running battle with the local RCMP and city engineers about lowering speed limits in quiet residential areas. We just can't. They have a thing where they go by, if 85% of the people are obeying the speed limit, then the speed limit's okay. The problem is the other 15% who are totally irresponsible racing through these quiet neighborhoods. I believe that in quiet residential neighborhoods, the speed limit should be 30 or 40 kilometers an hour. And try and get civic and provincial governments on board with that is almost impossible.
Ian, what do you think of that?
Well, this argument has been had very recently at the UBCM, as you know, Mike, and this proposal was brought up by a Victoria councillor not long ago as well. And I think if the caller has a discussion with the engineers in Richmond, you might see why they're saying this to them. When I looked at and I'm not saying I know what's going on in Richmond, but I can tell you when I looked at the numbers on the residential streets in Victoria, they were roughly what the councillor wanted to lower the speed limits to. So my question was, why do you need to do that? What are you trying to achieve?
Let's go to one more call. Ross.
Yes.
You got 30 seconds, Ross. Go ahead.
Yes. Well, I drive the Maryhill bypass regularly, 2 or 3 times a day, and if I do the posted speed limit, I am the moving traffic hazard. And so I just do what everybody else does, is 90, which is really, really comfortable. I mean, it's well posted, it's well marked, it's well banked. I don't get why we have to do 70. So I just think it needs to be improved in some manner.
Thanks for calling in. Hey, Ian, if people want to have their say on this, can they go online?
Yes, they can. The easiest thing is to direct them to sensebc.org, and there's a link directly there to the Ministry of Transportation website.
Thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Mike.
Ian Tootill, co-founder of Sense BC. Let's take a break at the bottom of the hour. Thanks a lot for all your calls on that one. Appreciate it. We got a great segment coming up. The Site C Dam. Oh, what a huge project. The debate is on. Stick around. Welcome back to the show. This is Province columnist Mike Smyth filling in for Simi Sara today. Let's talk about BC Hydro's $8 billion Site C Dam project now at a crucial stage as the review hearings continue. Wow, what a huge project this would be. It would build a third dam on the Peace River. It would produce about 1,100 megawatts of power. It'd be a huge dam, about 1,000 meters long, 60-meter high dam. It would flood a lot of land up there near Fort St. John as well. Some good farmland in that region. How much land? Well, imagine about 14 Stanley Parks being flooded for this project. Boy, a lot of people divided on this project. It's got generally support from the business community, but of course environmentalists opposed to the project. Some First Nations for it, some are against. We got both sides of it for you, and I'm looking forward to your calls in the open line as well. Let me introduce you to Keith Sashaw now, President and CEO, Association of Consulting Engineering Companies of BC. Hey, Keith.
Good afternoon.
Hey, thanks for coming on. We're at a crucial stage with this project. Give me your take for it. I know you support it.
Well, we are very supportive of the Site C dam. It's currently going through the joint review panel on the environmental assessment. And the Site C dam has been discussed for decades, and you're absolutely right. I think we're at a turning point now where the economic development of BC is so positive, with a lot of projects coming on that need a source of stable, dependable power, and that's best served by Site C dam.
Okay, what about all the land that would be flooded up there? I mean, this is one of the things that the opponents of the project, I hear all the time. This is good agricultural land, Class 1 land up there.
It's understandable there's concern about the flooding and the impact on the land. It's unfortunate that we will be losing some of the land, and however, it's got to be put within the context that overall the percentage of farmland is relatively small vis-a-vis the entire province. But also the economic benefits of the Site C dam really accrue to the whole province of BC, and that's I think there has to be a balance on there in terms of balancing some environmental considerations with projects like Site C that will have a tremendous benefit.
Do we really need to build this project now for $8 billion? That's a lot of money, and some people wonder if we even need the power at this point.
Well, we do. There's no doubt in my mind that we do need the power. We're anticipating $300 billion of major projects are in the works, according to the province of BC major project inventory, and that's everything from residential projects in the Lower Mainland, but even more importantly in terms of job creation and economic development. They include mines and forest projects and all sorts of things that create economic development and create employment throughout the province. Those kinds of projects do require a source of stable and dependable power. You know, we've been very supportive of BC Hydro's integrated resource plan in terms of mixing up the supply of power with run-of-the-river projects and independent power and others. We support that 100%, and we think that's very important. But Site C is also very important, that it will provide very green relative to other sources of power like coal-fired or nuclear or other, and it's a long-term investment that we need to make at this.
Opponents of the project, Keith, say that we could meet the power demands and electricity demands in the province largely through conservation, or maybe we could build other projects that wouldn't have as much of a damaging impact on the land.
Well, I think, again, it's a question of balancing the requirements. I'm not as confident that we could meet the power demands with other kinds of projects. Certainly conservation, we've seen tremendous amounts of conservation in the last decades, and that will continue. But the fact is there is going to be ever-increasing demands for power, just from people moving into the province and from the economic development projects that are going to be moving forward. And I think this is the time to make that investment.
Okay, what about wildlife habitat up there? I mean, this is another one that is brought up frequently. That's a lot of land to flood up there. That will never get back again. I mean, once you flood that land, it's gone.
Well, that's the whole process. Why BC Hydro is going through the environmental review process to really get a handle on that, the impact on wildlife habitat, and the full environmental stream. That process is underway, and there's comprehensive reports that are being prepared by BC Hydro and by others on this whole issue. Our members, the engineering community, have played a role in terms of providing input on some of the environmental steps that could be taken to mitigate the impact. So there will be an impact. We understand that. It's however, in terms of the overall benefit to the province, we feel it's important that the project proceed.
What would be the benefit?
Well, the benefit would be a source of stable and dependable power that will allow us to continue to bring on other projects such as mines and forest projects and others that will benefit the province, will generate jobs, will generate taxes, and result in improved lifestyles.
What do you say, Keith, to the First Nations up in that area who oppose the project? Say this is a land we've been here for thousands of years. There are cultural sites there that are going to be flooded.
No, I hear them, and I think that they certainly deserve to be heard. And again, that's the process that is being that is going through right now with the joint review panel, so that those communities and those interested parties can have that input, and that they can bring their concerns forward, and hopefully that they can be addressed in some form. Is
the review of the project adequate? Again, this is one that comes up a lot. that we've got a joint review panel looking at the project now, that it's not doing an adequate review, and people are not having a chance to have their say on it. What do you say?
Well, that's not an area where I'm terribly knowledgeable on. And the fact is I know the Site C review panel has spent a lot of time and energy going out, telling people about the hearings that are underway. The hearings are in northern BC. They're seeking input and submissions from any interested party. I mean, I had the opportunity of going up Prince George to talk to the joint review panel because we felt it was important that our message get heard.
Do you think the project should be built over the objections of the people who live in the area? I mean, is there like the greater good that should some sort of provincial test?
You know, I think that the concerns of the people affected by the dam have to be heard, and they have to be consulted with, and where possible, steps should be taken to mitigate the impact on the people who are going to be affected by the Site C dam. And
how can you mitigate flooding all that land?
Well, you can find other alternate uses. You can make compensation and all of those other things that I'm sure BC Hydro is taking a look at. But when it comes down to it, it is in the provincial interest that Site C dam proceed. The overall impact for the bulk of the 4 million citizens of British Columbia is going to be on the positive side.
Thank you for coming on.
A pleasure. Thank you.
I appreciate Keith Sashaw. He obviously supports the project. We can get the other side of it when we come back. Get set to call me up on this because this is a huge project that we're going to hear a lot about in 2014. That third dam on the Peace River, the Site C dam, massive project, $8 billion, 1,100 megawatts of power. Phone me and tell me what you think about it. A lot of people think we've been talking about this for a long time. I think this project has been dead and buried a few times over the years, but it just keeps coming back. This looks like the final push to actually get the dam built. Phone me. Tell me what you think about it. 604-280-9898 is the number to call me. Toll free. All around BC, it's 1-877-399-9898, star 9898 on your cell. More after this. All right, welcome back as we continue our discussion of the proposed Site C dam. Talk lots more about this project in the days ahead. You heard Keith Sashaw make the case for the dam. Let's check in now with Gwen Johansson, the mayor of the district of Hudson's Hope, BC. That's one of the communities closest to the project. Hi, Gwen.
Good afternoon.
Thanks for coming on. What do you think of this project?
Well, I've looked at it from a lot of different perspectives. So I guess right now we're looking at it from the perspective of the District of Hudson Hope, and I guess would fall back on a statement that was made by the World Commission on Dams when they wrote their report a few years ago, and that was that worldwide, when dams are built, they tend to the impacts are felt by the local area. Right. But the benefits go to the areas outside the local area, and that's the case with Site C would be, and it's also the case for both the WAC Bennett Dam and Peace Canyon Dam, the other two major dams that we have within our borders.
Okay, so, you live very close to where the dam would be built, right?
No, I live actually where on the upstream area of the reservoir. The dam actually would be built very close to Fort St. John. I live in Hudson Hope, which is about 80. So the reservoir would be 83 kilometers long in the main stem, and so I live at the upper end of that 83 kilometers.
Okay, would it affect your property?
My own property would be affected, yes, and I've made that very clear to everybody as I go and talk about Site C.
Yeah, how would it be affected? Your property would be flooded?
Yeah, yes. I have 151 acres on the river. And so the house and all the buildings would be flooded. And then one of the things that is often overlooked as far as an impact is concerned is that there is erosion and there is sloughing that results after an area is flooded. And the Peace River area is really subject to flooding and sloughing and sliding and so on. And there's a saying up here that the Peace River country wants to be flat, and it's been working on it for eons. And so they have established, because they know that's going to happen, they've established a number of impact lines that are back considerable distances in some cases from where the initial reservoir line would be. And so there is the land that would be flooded, and that would be gone. And then there is a land which is placed under a statutory right-of-way, and that's the land between the initial reservoir and the highest impact line. And just within the district of Hudson's Hope, not counting the rest of the reservoir, there would be about 1,700 hectares of land. It would be about 1,500 acres of land that would be flooded or lost due to highway relocation. But then there's 4,200 acres that would be placed under that statutory right-of-way, and you can't do things on that. You can't. You would not be able to build new residences, for instance, and it would give BC Hydro the right to erode or flood or inundate or so on. And we're seeing the impact of that right now, still up on Williston Reservoir.
How would BC Hydro deal with landowners like yourself who may be opposed to the project and whose land would be flooded? I guess they would have the power to expropriate your property and compensate you? Is that how it would work?
Yeah, they would. What they're saying, as I understand it, is that they would either buy or they would expropriate the land that would be actually inundated, flooded, so up to the initial reservoir line. Then the land between that and the highest impact line, it has that statutory right-of-way on it, then they just impose the statutory right-of-way on
How
the
much
title.
How much would they pay you?
I don't know. I have not gone and spoken to them. They have been buying property for this project since about 1975. They have what they call a passive land acquisition policy. And so if someone, this is a long period of time, it's almost 40 years now. So if people die or they retire and they want to move on, or for whatever reason they wish to move away or to sell, then if they want to, they can go to BC Hydro and ask them to buy. And
have they ever asked? Has Hydro ever asked you if you want to sell your property?
No.
Is there any amount of money they could offer you that would make you support the project?
I'm pretty attached to my property.
All
It's
right.
a beautiful, beautiful valley.
All right, Gwen, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take another break, come back with more with Gwen Johansson, the mayor of the District of Hudson's Hope. Now, let's get the phone calls going. Phone me up and tell me what you think about this massive project. 604-280-9898 is the number to call. Toll free all around BC. It's 1-877-399-9898, star 9898 on your cell. Your call's next. All right, welcome back. Talking about the proposed Site C Dam. My guest, Gwen Johansson, the mayor of Hudson's Hope. Her property to be flooded if the dam went through. She's opposed to it. 604-280-9898. Let's go to Jason on the open line. Hey, Jason.
Hello?
Yeah, hi.
Hey, my opinion is the days of flooding land to get power are long gone. That's 150 years old. I just... If somebody objects to the idea of doing it, then you throw your hands up and say no. I'm down with nuclear power. I don't know what's up with other people, but it's a safe way to go. It doesn't take a lot of. We got the Fraser River right there. We're good to go on nuclear. Let's not do this. Leave these people alone. We don't. If we need power, we'll find another way. Let's let them live and be at peace, eh?
Okay, Jason, thanks for a good call. Gwen, you're a former director of BC Hydro, I believe, correct?
That's right.
Okay, what do you think about Hydro's argument that, look, we need to build this thing, we need the power, we got all kinds of mega projects coming online in BC, we need to flood that valley?
Well, there's lots of different ways. There's lots of different alternatives. Now, Hydro is in a difficult position right now because they're so very much constrained by the legislation and the policies that are in place for the province that restricts it. Natural gas is a viable alternative, and there are ways to capture the carbon. So that's one alternative. You just had another one suggested. There are others. Geothermal was brought forward. And so it's not as though this is the only option. And so that's something that I think that, really needs to be looked at, and it's very difficult for this panel because they're constrained by the policies and the Clean Energy Act and so on, the same as Hydro is. So
okay.
It's a difficult one.
Let's go to Margaret on the open line. Hi.
I think the first gentleman is right that the days of flooding people's land is over. There was no choice probably 150, 100 years ago, but now there's the wind power, solar, geothermal, etc. And I think that these are the best way to go.
Gwen, do you think the people who own the land up there and the native bands who have lived there for a long time, they should have a veto over the project? If they say no, the project should not go ahead, or should there be some kind of provincial interest override?
Well, I think you have to have a very fair, you have to have a fair assessment, and you have to look at the alternatives. But it has to be done in a completely transparent and open manner with all the options on the table. So this one is very, as I mentioned, it's really difficult because there are so many restraints that have been put on both this joint review panel that's looking at it, and also on BC Hydro itself.
Let's go to Chris on the open line. Hi, Chris.
Yeah, I think they should build it. Just keep the private-public partnerships out of it. Keep the rip-off private sector trying to come in and take advantage of the public sector. But something, all these people that want to build nuclear and this and that, right? Get with it. Would rather have Alberta bitumen coming in and powering our power plants or nuclear power? Give me a break.
Okay, thank you for calling in. Gwen, this project would be built by BC Hydro. It would not be a P3 or a private project, correct?
That's my understanding.
Yeah. Does that make it? That doesn't make it any more palatable to you, though.
Well, what I guess the district is affected by the project, whether it's built by a private individual or a private group, or whether it's built by BC Hydro. The impact on the municipality and on the land within the municipality is the same. So I guess
you're still getting flooded.
Yeah.
Let's go to Alex on the open line. Hi, Alex.
Hi, I'm just trying to. It's kind of a question, but all the way across the board, we're talking about funding TransLink. We're talking about building dams and this and that, and I don't understand why we're so focused on growing the population and bringing people into the country to grow the population. We just need more infrastructure, more needs to be built. Why can't we just slow things down and enjoy what kind of life we have right now? Okay. I'm not opposed to development or creating jobs for people. I get that. But why are we so focused on population growth?
Okay, Gwen.
Yes, well, I suppose, and you're absolutely right. We have set up a system where we measure our success by how much we grow, and until we get a different measuring stick, it's really hard to see how we're going to get out of this cycle that we put ourselves into.
Well, growth is what fuels the government revenues that pay for the things that everybody wants, right? We want the best healthcare system in the world. We want the best education system in the world. We want a system that's going to care for our senior citizens and the less and the disadvantaged. That's why we need growth.
Yeah, but I'm not sure that our way of growing and what we're getting back from our resources, say, is getting us to where we want to go. And I don't know whether we need to go to the Norwegian model, where they have managed to, establish a very large fund by controlling how the resources are developed.
Okay.
They seem to have done a better job.
Let's go to Doug. We have less than a minute left. Doug.
It should have been mentioned first. Nobody's actually referred to it directly as the fact that the carbon being put into the atmosphere is starting to really affect the climate, and it can only get worse.
Okay, Doug, thank you for calling. I hate to cut you off, but we're up against the clock. This would be clean energy, Gwen. Get 30 seconds left here.
Well, you can make natural gas clean, too, if you just capture the greenhouse gases, and we're getting very close to the technology to be able to do that commercially.
Thank you for coming on today.
Okay. You're welcome, and I enjoyed it. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Gwen Johansson, the mayor of Hudson's Hope. Got the final hour of the show coming up. Going to push another hot button for you next. Grizzly bear hunting. Yeah, stick around.